Assalamu alaikum, welcome to Game Changer. I'm Maryam Zia. In today's program, we will be talking about the ongoing election process in India. Of course, this is one of the biggest election in history when we talk about this ongoing election, which started on April 19, and this is going to be held over 7 phases. In today's program, we will be talking about different dimensions of this ongoing elections in which, of course, the results of the ballots are going to be announced on June 4th. We will be talking about overall strategy, political strategy and election campaigning of specifically BJP, which is led by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and how in this election particularly, this is the first time that BJP has not contested its candidates from the Kashmir Valley. What are going to be its political implications and what are the reasons behind that? What are going to be consequences of this? We will be discussing all these dimensions in today's program, and we will be exploring the reasons behind this, because we know that after 2019 abrogation of Article 370 and 35A, this is the first time that of course the population of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir are going to elections. What are going to be impacts on the valley, on this conflict, and of course we will also be talking about the human rights violations in the region as well, and what are going to be its implications. To discuss this and more, we are joined in the studios by Mr. Altaf Wani, who is member all Parties Hurriyat Conference. Welcome to the program. We're also joined by Mr. Sheharyar Khan, who is analyst. Welcome to the program. And we are joined online by Dr. Asma Shakir Khawaja, who is Executive Director, Center for International Strategic Studies, AJK. Welcome to the program. Dr. Asma, let me start with you. When we talk about these elections, first, what do you make of the turnout when we talk about these elections, specifically when we know that this is the first time that Prime Minister Modi is not going to be contesting and BJP is not going to be contesting from the 5 seats of in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Rather, they have had two candidates for the other, of course, Hindu majority regions of Srinagar and Ladakh, but there are not any contestants from the 3 seats of Kashmir Valley. What do you make of all this strategy?
Number one, we have to understand few points before reaching to any conclusion about the elections in Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Number one, BJP's electoral strategy can be divided into 3 phases. First is pre-poll rigging. Second is the rigging during the polling, and third is the post-poll rigging. And BJP and its institutions and government institutions of India are all set and prepared to conduct all these 3 types or phases of riggings. So in the pre-poll rigging phase, first of all, BJP under the Delimitation Commission has reduced the parliamentary seats of Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir in Indian Lok Sabha from 6 to 5. So now there are 5 candidates contesting in those 5 seats. Therefore, that contestants are contesting with each other. Number 2, BJP is testing the soil, testing the ground through its proxies. Yes, BJP is not contesting these elections in Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir, but the proxies of BJP, or with the support of Indian government, the touts of Indian government and BJP, they are contesting these elections. So first of all, BJP, I assume, that trying to see that how the rigging tactics how much rigging tactics can help BJP supported candidates to win the election. And after that, BJP would come forward and maybe instead of fighting elections or influencing the political landscape of Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir through proxies, maybe BJP would come and contest the state assembly elections.
Right, right. Let me take this question to Wani Saab. Wani Saab, what do you make of this situation, specifically when we talk about redrawing of significant constituencies, that is Anantnag, Rajouri constituency, in altering the political landscape of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and what impact it is going to be having on voters? And also we know that this time around the turnout is better when we talk about Srinagar and other constituency as well as compared to 2019.
The delimitation which the Delimitation Commission of Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir did, though it was illegal because the Parliament of India had capped the delimitation of assemblies or the Parliament of India till 2026, and the next elections that will be held in 2031 or could be held in the new delimitation segment. But it was out of the belief that they did through presidential order, then did the delimitation of Jammu and Kashmir, and in a way.
And what was the rationale behind it?
The rationale behind it was, as I told you, it was to benefit the Hindu population, to benefit, to disempower the Muslims of Kashmir Valley, to disempower the others, and along with the delimitation, the BJP did many things in order to have a kind of demographic change in the parliament also, in the so-called legislative assembly which will be created in occupied Kashmir, to have a demographic change in that. So it was done in that way. To add Poonch and Rajouri to the Islamabad constituency, it was because that they thought that in Poonch and Rajouri they had some Hindu votes, and they would give the Gujars and Bakarwalas, they will contest with the Muslims of Kashmir, and it was to put the different religions against each other, to put different communities each other. It was divide and rule by the BJP.
Right, divide and rule, but even after that divide and rule policy, it's the first time since 1996 that BJP is not having any candidate, especially in the Kashmir Valley, when we talk about those 3 seats. What do you make of that?
You see, in Kashmir Valley, BJP had never a seat in if any candidate. If it's as in DDC elections, we saw
of
the
course
BJP
they never won the seat.
BJP could not get any of the seats there.
Yeah, but
BJP did not have a face. BJP did not have a face in Kashmir to put them in the elections. You need a face to put them in the contest of elections. So BJP they do not have, and they were testing the waters at this time. They will see, will their allies, with whom they are there, who supported them in the abrogation of Article 370 and thereafter, they have been supporting the BJP's mantra of normalcy, development and all that. They are supporting those in Baramulla constituency, in Srinagar, as well as in this Anantnag and Poonch Rajouri constituency.
Right, and the reason I'm asking you about those 3 seats in the region is because, of course, Modi government is anticipating a major win in these elections in India, but from this region they are not, of course, fielded any candidate. So does it question or would it be a question mark on the legitimacy of the incoming government in India in the region?
You see, in the region, the people have never accepted the BJP as a stakeholder or the other parties. Why the people are voting there? It's because it's a routine matter of day-to-day problems of the people, so they are voting there. It has nothing to do with the people's aspirations, which are the right celebration of the people of Jammu and Kashmir. Having said that, the BJP's stakes in these elections in Indian occupied Kashmir, they are facing a tough task even in Jammu, even in Udhampur, and also in Ladakh constituency, which they thought that it will be easy for them to win those elections, because most of the people, what BJP had said at the time when they abrogated Article 370, that there will be the development, there will be the empowerment of women, and there will be investment and so on and so forth. You saw the agitation in Ladakh calling for that what is happening to the ecology of Ladakh, because the foreigners are coming there, they are extracting the
anybody who has lived in the region for more than a year, they can.
Likewise, in Jammu, the Jammu's Dogras, who firstly, they celebrated the abrogation of Article 370, but then they saw that more and more people are buying lands in Jammu rather than in Kashmir, because in Kashmir they still feel a heat in Kashmir. So they are also against the BJP. So BJP could not fulfill the promises which she made to the people. The development is on papers only. What they are showing to the people, that roads, construction, all this, those are the defense related projects. They have nothing to do with the people's welfare.
Right, of course, we will talking about the economic dimensions of these elections and how voters are taking into consideration. But Sheharyar, when we talk about BJP's narrative, what do you make of it? Over years, it has evolved from, of course, targeting the external enemies now to internal enemies, specifically when we talk about Muslims in India.
So overall in India, the narrative that BJP was giving since 2019, it has evolved. In 2019, we remember that it was more externalized. It was more like centering around the idea of national security. It was centering around the idea that Modi is a savior of India, and he's and at that time the scapegoating was done against Pakistan. We remember the Pulwama attack, and then we remember the Balakot. Now they have created another enemy from the within. They basically said that we've secured our borders. Now the enemy is the Muslim minority.
And they are labeling the Muslims within India as infiltrators. What do you think this is going to be having an impact on elections turnout, or do you think that voters are going to be considering this element or its impact on society at large?
So Maryam, this is directly related to how the BJP party is basically rewriting the history of India. So they are trying to have this revisionist policy in which they are going back in time and changing how the history of India was. And this is the history of India which suits them. It suits their Hindutva ideology. And in that ideology, the Muslims of India were basically construed as invaders. So this is how this externalizing of their problems, their economic performance, the rising inequality, the rising unemployment can be put on the back burner if you put an enemy in front of the people, and they basically say that all of these issues are because of this.
But that enemy is 14% population of
Exactly,
India.
it's like more than the population of Pakistan.
Yes.
So this is how world's largest economy, if you scrape on the surface, you find out that it's built upon the marginalization of the minorities in India. So other than that, when we also talk about the perceptions that BJP gave when they abrogated the Article 370 and Article 35A, the perception was that the integration of Kashmir was very peaceful, and people of Kashmir have accepted it. Now, because of the fact that they are not fielding any candidates in those seats, basically goes to show that they don't want the world to know that this abrogation was rejected by the people of Kashmir. So that whole persona of integration, of peaceful integration of Kashmir, that is automatically shattered if all those three candidates are rejected by the people of Kashmir. So that is why they don't want to field the candidates over there. They don't want those candidates to be democratically, the voice of people will basically show that it was this whole idea was rejected.
Right. And Dr. Asma, how do you view the response of regional political parties when we talk about redrawing these constituencies within the region? And also, what do you make of voter turnout, specifically when we talk about this is the first time since 2019 that the people are going to be voting in these elections?
If we see the domestic environment in Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir, two things are obvious. Number one, the government of BJP in Delhi they are trying to use these elections in Jammu and Kashmir to tell Indian public and international audience that everything is fine after the 5 years of revocation of Article 370. However, for the people in Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir, for those Kashmiris, those elections are an opportunity to manifest their disengagement with BJP, to tell BJP that their supported proxies cannot form the government, and it is their way to restore the statehood of Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir. So, yes, voter turnout is better, but the reason behind is that people, they don't want BJP supported candidates to win those elections. When it comes to the domestic, the local parties in Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir, almost leaders of all local parties, they are again and again speaking, demonstrating, conducting press conferences to highlight their concerns over the quality of those elections, over the all this election rigging. As you know that there were on election day in Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir, there were reports from different polling booths, polling stations, that the polling agents were arrested by Indian occupying forces. The machines were not working, the polling stations were not open, and at some places the candidates were not allowed to launch their electoral campaigns. Even politicians like Wahidur Rahman Para, they were arrested and detained, I would say, and tortured. So BJP government, or BJP governed institutions, they tried their best. That, as we all know, that Jamaat-e-Islami is not been allowed to contest these elections as well, and BJP somewhere is supporting the ingress of the other parties other than the local parties. They created puppet leadership with the support of Indian institutions. So the situation, if you call even pro-Indian, as I always say, leadership, Mehbooba Mufti, Farooq Abdullah, and several others, they were critical of the quality of elections, and they were again and again speaking. We all know that Mehbooba Mufti on election day, she gave a dharna, a sit-in, because her polling agents in several polling stations were not allowed to go there. So the situation is really, really complex, and the problem is that, as usual, BJP propagandists, they are of the opinion that they can create a bubble of disinformation, whatever the ground realities are. And ground realities are that people were forced to cast their votes under the supervision of Indian soldiers, so that they should cast their votes to the candidates which BJP supported candidates. Another thing is that BJP supported proxy parties and candidates, they distributed money among Kashmiris and promised them that if they would come in power, they would double that money. And all those tactics are generally considered in civilized world. I don't know about India how the situation.
Right, of course, there are serious questions on legitimacy of these elections as well. So, Wani Sahab, what do you make of this, and also the presence of over 1 million troops within Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir? How do they impact the voter sentiment, and when we talk about the turnout within these elections?
You see, already you had the 100,000 troops in Kashmir to suppress the people's resistance against the Indian occupation, and then you have more troops for conducting these elections,
right.
More security for these elections. This says volumes about the normalcy in Indian occupied Kashmir, the normalcy mantra which BJP and its allies have been telling to the international audience and also to the Indian audience. But the voting turnout, what we say the impacts of this, when you have suppression, when you have crackdowns on the population and you tell the population you have to vote, so the people will have to vote. They have to say then what they can do, what an unarmed person can do. When you come in the morning and a police officer or a military officer, they crack down the whole area and they tell people come out and vote. The people will vote.
And what about the local parties? What challenges do they face in these elections and how they are dealing with those?
You see, the local political parties which are contesting these elections, the pro-Indian, which are the pro-Indian parties, we say that like PDP, the National Conference and others, those are the parties.
But National Conference and PDP are more of opposition.
They are in opposition to BJP, they are in India Alliance, but they are the ones who have been responsible for what is happening in Indian occupied Kashmir till date. They are also the collaborators like others. But now Indian government, after throwing them out, after throwing Mahbooba out, after throwing Farooq Abdullah out, they cultivated new collaborators whom they are supporting at this time in these 3 assembly constituencies, and their dream is to, in the assembly elections, with the help of these, they will have a Hindu chief minister in occupied Jammu and Kashmir, which is a distant dream of BJP, which doesn't look that they are going to achieve that under the current circumstances. But the repression, the kind of repression they have there, in that repression, the local parties also faced that music. The music under their regime, we face it. The people of the freedom loving people faced, those who are in Tihar jail, those faced, and that music these parties are also facing, and they are also calling that now that the Indian government has not kept their promises to the people of Kashmir. Indian government has not been with their international commitments and obligations vis-a-vis to Kashmir, and also to the people of Kashmir with whom they negotiated the Article 370 of the Indian Constitution to give the people of Kashmir the kind of autonomy they had. So they are facing that. They are not in a position to run that election campaign like they used to run previously, as Dr. Asma Shakir Khawaja was telling you. Mahbooba, Umar Abdullah, Farooq Abdullah, everybody had the statements that BJP and its forces are coercing the voters. They are putting their election agents behind the bars. Now you can put anybody in jail in occupied Kashmir, calling him a stone pelter, calling him an agent, calling him a foreign agent, and you can put them in. So it's easy for them to do all that, and they did it on that day. That's why we saw Mahbooba's daughter, and Umar Abdullah crying on the television station, on the cameras, that BJP is doing this and that in these elections, which BJP has been doing, because under the last 10 years of BJP rule, each and every organ of the Indian government has been now taken up by these Hindutva elements,
right,
who dream of the Akhand Bharat.
Right, or Hindu Rashtra. But Sheharyar, how do you see that these political strategies of BJP in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir differ from the rest of India?
Obviously, like, this is built upon repression, and now when you have a population that is being controlled from the top, it like really goes to show when the foreign direct investment, the time for investment comes in. Now if you have an area that is like controlled by the Indian military, if you talk about Jammu, if you talk about Kashmir, abrogation of the articles that we've like already discussed, why isn't this like investment going and like realizing its benefits in Indian occupied Kashmir, for example? Even the investors are not sure whether the Indian military would be able to provide that security or that stability that is required for any investment to like take place, and those people are reluctant because they know that there won't be uptake from the local populations over there. So that is becoming a big issue, that all the promises on which this abrogation was basically conducted, it basically had an idea of basically changing the whole demographics of that area, and even that has not been realized, because no one wants to like invest in an area that is like occupied by the military. Let's
Right.
like get everything like on the table. Even of these like promises that are being made about demographic changes, you can do demographic changes. It takes like at least like decades to get that even done. In those decades, a lot of like sham elections will have to take place for that whole demographic to change. For the people of like central India to even think about investing in those areas occupied by the military, there needs to a lot more to be done. And those promises in this election will not be realized, and people will start like feeling the unrest. They will start feeling the pinch of the economic instability, and this whole idea without the demographic or the democratic will of the people is failed to achieve the purposes that BJP wants to do.
Right. And Dr. Asma, I would like your take on the same question, that how does BJP's electoral strategy differs from the rest of India, and also how, in your opinion, or what do you make of international community's response to these elections, specifically in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir?
The first difference between illegally Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir and other parts of India is that in Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir, Indian paramilitary forces, Indian police or Indian military, they can arrest any Kashmiri under the black laws and without providing him any medical or judicial or legal assistance. So, and they can keep him for years in jail. So this is what is being badly utilized during those electoral campaigns, as mentioned by Altaf Wani, that Indian armed forces kept on arresting, harassing, detaining the political party workers of other parties which are not supported by BJP. And we all know that these the whole international community and international institutions which are responsible to measure the quality of democracy across the globe, they are raising questions on those elections in India, because practically when we see, yes, all over India, Modi and BJP are not allowing any dissent or opposition voices to flourish and to have complete democratic space to run election campaigns. So see, the situation is similar, same in IIOJK, but the intensity is exaggerated because of the intensified because of the TADA and other black laws in Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir. As far as the response of international community is concerned, fortunately, like I have seen few articles published in international media which are talking about all those repressive tactics used by Indian occupying forces in Jammu and Kashmir to undermine or to reduce the space for actual public or people participation. But again, it is really important to understand that Kashmiris are participating in those elections in Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir because they don't want BJP to become face of Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir. They don't want BJP supported candidates to become a face of Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and that is why they want the other voices to have seats in the parliament. So international community up till now, I think world is waiting for the election results on 4th June, and after that the international observers and institutions would publish their reports, which would definitely have effect on the India's India in reputation.
And Vanisa, when we talk about these elections, in your opinion, how does this electoral process align with or contradict with the will of Kashmiri people in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir?
You see, there is this categoric resolutions from the United Nations that any elections in any part of Jammu and Kashmir cannot be substitute to the rights of information or the plebiscite to be held for the whole state of Jammu and Kashmir. So these elections held under the barrel of gun by the Indians, they are not it's not the first time. These elections have been going on there from 1951 till date. So they have not made any difference. If they had, these elections had anything to do with the resolution of Kashmir conflict, with the resolution of the Kashmir issue, then they would have done it. But from 1951 till date, India is conducting these elections under the barrel of gun, changing the governments at its will in Indian-occupied Kashmir, creating leaders of its own in Indian-occupied Kashmir, and that has nothing to do with the real issue, with the real aspirations of the people of Kashmir. So the real aspirations of Kashmir lie when the people of Kashmir will vote for their political future. Why do they align? Will they want to align with Pakistan, or they want to align with India? That is their political will to be expressed through free and fair plebiscite. And
Right.
that's the United Nations Resolution 1957, 122 resolution, which specifically deals with this issue. And so these elections, whether they are held periodically, whether they are held daily, have no bearing on the status of the Indian-occupied Jammu
Right,
and
and
Kashmir
even
issue.
even the voter turnout is not indicating that these elections are legitimate.
Nothing like that, these elections. It is not voting turnout. In 1951, almost all the candidates of National Conference, they were elected unopposed to the State Constituent Assembly. And then in 1977, Sheikh Abdullah himself was contesting the election, and he had a huge victory. But that did not make any difference to the real cause of Kashmir. And this is what Mahbooba Mufti, Umar Abdullah and Farooq Abdullah in 2008 elections, State Assembly elections, and also in 2014 State Assembly elections, when they were going to the public, they were saying that these elections are for the civic facilities, for the local governance. They have nothing to do with the issue of Kashmir. For the issue of Kashmir, the government of India will have to talk to the people of Kashmir, the real leadership of Kashmir, and to the government of Pakistan to decide the future of Kashmir. It cannot be done in isolation by conducting such elections.
Right, and Dr. Asma, how has this Modi's approach to Kashmir has influenced the broader perception of Indian electorate in these elections, the way BJP is dealing with Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir?
Their decade-old approach towards Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir revoked the Article 370 is uh, is sliding down on the democratic indexes, and with the passage of time during last 5 years, India has become an electoral autocracy, and now whole elections in India, they were fought on the premise. The opposition parties in India, they try to make people understand that how Modi has become a dictator, emerged as a dictator, and is looking for establishing the dictatorship norms in India. So this is what Modi's Kashmir policy has brought India in terms of reputation, in terms of the decades old, the image of this of largest democracy, which was built by other Indian leaders with the efforts of like 7 decades. Now that is being tarnished by Modi, and India has become, because of the aggressive postures when it comes to Kashmir, India has become the electoral autocracy. So definitely Modi's Kashmir policy, it is not me who is saying that, but several Indian scholars and Indian retired military bureaucrats who worked in Kashmir, they are saying that Modi's policies have created a mess in Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and we all know that Kashmir was more was in a better state during the government of Manmohan Singh, when the confidence building measures were taking place. Pakistan and India were in communications. The people were able to do cross LOC tickets, and cross LOC bus service was there. So definitely Modi has created a mess in Kashmir, not only for India, but the lives and the human development indexes for Kashmiris are have worsened. How can we forget that how during COVID-19, Modi regime treated poor Kashmiris in occupied Kashmir, and they were not access to health security or any such thing as well.
Right, right. And Sheharyar, lastly, what are the factors that are going to be impacting the outcome of these elections in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and also their implications on regional peace and security?
So, Maryam, first of all, the elections are now tainted by this blatant gerrymandering that the BJP party is already conducting. They are trying desperately to change the demographic details of the geographical area. Other than that, the false promises of development funds, resource allocation, investments coming from mainland India to the illegally occupied Kashmir, those promises were not realized as well. A lot of business interests, they are also being compromised in the sense that the initial promises that were made by the BJP party, they could also not hold true. Other than that, obviously, if we talk about the whole overall state repression that is taking place and illegal military occupation under the people, so any elections or any policy reforms coming out of this political environment are not legitimate in any sense of the word. So when it comes to the international attention on this area, it's a lot. Obviously, all the international observers are looking at the way the BJP party is manipulating the elections in this area. When the election observers will be coming, when they will be doing a post-election scrutiny, and those scrutinies, all the international observers, I'm very sure they will basically give a very candid assessment on how these elections were conducted and how they were manipulated even before the elections took place. So in the eyes of the international community, these elections again would not be very legitimate, but we would have to see that what kind of a stance does the international community want to take. If you look at what's happening in Kashmir, we can draw very stark parallels on on the way Israel basically treats Palestine. And I personally think because of this whole interaction or this cooperation that is taking place between the Hindutva ideology and the Zionist ideology, I see a lot of parallels. And they've taken a page out of the way the Israelis basically treat the Palestinians, and that same formula is being applied by the BJP party in Kashmir as well. And that is a very stark reminder on what the international human rights conventions or the way international law is framed. How will it be applied? Will it be selective application of that law globally, and in which the whole concept of might is right is being used? Not only in Kashmir, but a lot of other hotspots in the world as well. And this is a moral question for the whole international community on whether they would be ignoring whatever is happening in Kashmir, just like they have ignored it in Israel as well. So this would obviously bring the whole international rules-based order into question, and the way the world will be treating this issue would be a stark reminder of the things to come in the future.
Right, right. Thank you very much, Mr. Sheharyar Khan, for joining us in today's program. Thank you very much, Mr. Altaf and Wani, for joining us in today's program. Thank you very much, Dr. Asma Khawaja, for joining us in today's program. Of course, when we talk about the ongoing election process in India, these so-called elections in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir are no substitute for Kashmiris' right to self-determination, and it is high time that United Nations and other relevant, of course, international agencies, of course, honor their commitments regarding the resolution of Kashmir dispute. That's all from Game Changer tonight. Take care. Allah Hafiz.